sleep, headache, dizziness. That's what several Pepco customers say they are experiencing after wireless smart meters were installed at their homes. And now 9 wants to know why these meters are emitting radiation far more frequently than Pepco claims. Our Kristen Fisher uncovered this new evidence. And Kristen, this is similar to the radiation debate over cell phones and cancer, right?
Yes, this is very similar to that debate in that it's the same kind of radiation, and the research into its safety is not conclusive. But here's the big difference. You can choose how often you use your cell phone, right? But with smart meters, you don't have a choice. The frequency with which you are exposed to this radiation is determined by the power company. And as I found, it may be a lot more frequent than they claim. This is a meter that tests for radio frequency radiation, the same kind of radiation that's emitted by smart meters. And today, Desiree Jaworski with the Center for Safer Wireless, an independent group that questions the safety of smart meters, is using this device to test 3 Pepco customers' smart meters. We turn off anything else that might emit this radiation, our cell phones, my wireless microphone. That way we know that any radiation we pick up is coming from the meters. So this is a smart meter bank. It's inside a Northwest DC condominium building, and there's 32 different smart meters inside this building. So what I did was I brought in a meter that measures the levels of radio frequency radiation, and what I'm finding is that these smart meters are emitting radiation every few seconds. But Pepco says smart meter communications take place every 4 to 6 hours.
What Pepco says is happening is that these smart meters send out communications every 4 to 6 hours on a daily basis. But what we're seeing is that these smart meters communicate about 4 to 6 times a minute, if not more.
We also tested 2 single-family homes, and even with just 1 smart meter, we got the same readings. It did not sit well with homeowner Lisa Crecelius in Potomac.
They're not asking you if they may radiate you or not.
No,
they're just doing it.
On top of that, it's more than what they were saying.
It just comes across as very dishonest.
So I brought these findings to Pepco spokesman Marcus Beal, who said,
I can't account for a test that there are a lot of variables involved that we can't account for with a test that we're not present at. But, we're confident in the specs of our meters and the safeness of the meters at this point.
So I asked Pepco if we could go out with their experts to do their own test. They told me they would look into it. And just to be clear, we're not saying whether or not this radiation is dangerous. That's up to the scientists, and it is currently the subject of a very heated debate. What we're saying, Leslie, is that our testing simply showed that the meters are emitting radiation more frequently than Pepco's telling its customers.
So this is really just an attempt to give people information, to empower
Correct.
them, and they can make their own decisions about going forward.
You got it.
Kristen, thank you.
If that station wasn't wording things to avoid a lawsuit, they probably would have mentioned how dangerous the radiation levels actually were to the average person. Some are more sensitive than others, some are more prone to cancer. When the 5G network is completely rolled out and there's a cell tower every 800 feet in every major metropolitan area, as well as most townships and probably even unincorporated cities, not only in the USA and Europe, but the entire world, the next major phase of a depopulation agenda will be fully implemented. It won't be as simple as everyone frying like a hamster in a microwave. A better analogy might be a frog in a pot slowly coming to a boil. But the massive bombardment of frequencies emitted by the amalgamate of smart devices connected by Wi-Fi and/or Li-Fi to the Internet of Things in so-called smart cities will be quite a bit like living inside of a microwave oven. And the goal is to connect literally everything in the home, including toilets, so that even when we're using the bathroom, we're being irradiated as well as taxed for our usage of resources until we're ultimately taxed for the air we breathe. Smart meters are a proven source of massive radiation exposure, but that will just increase when all other appliances and devices are connected as well. Couple that with the ingestion of foods with GMOs, nanotechnology, yes, nanotechnology, preservatives and sugar alternatives like aspartame, and even drugs like the pharmaceuticals we're urged to ask our doctors about in TV commercials, and it's a recipe for depopulation. It's a slow, silent removal of a large segment of the population, and 5G frequencies alone will speed up the process. The powers that be will shrug and shake their heads as they feign ignorance, while it will seem to most uninformed sheeple that everyone is just dying of natural causes. Yes, like pets that die from tumors after being microchipped. And while not everyone will die from the carcinogenic radiation, just as many have died from or fought cancer after prolonged cell phone usage, it will certainly dumb down the rest. Studies are showing that all this increasing radiation is responsible for autism, learning disabilities including ADHD, dementia and Alzheimer's, general memory loss, headaches, loss of sleep, stress, and genetic damage, such as lowered eye and skin health and bacterial resistance, as well as tumors and a host of other problems. People who shut down all electronics at night before sleeping, particularly Wi-Fi, find that they sleep better and are healthier. Those who aren't cooked to death by all the radiation will most likely have trouble functioning, even if they remember where they wake up in the morning. As noted in a linked article, the same frequencies used by pain-inflicting crowd control weapons, long-range acoustic devices, form the basis for the network that ties together the Internet of Things. While microwave weapons have been used on the public in the past, or even voice of God weapons, used by American forces in Iraq, the potential for using 5G connected devices against the public is a foregone conclusion. As if being passively irradiated isn't enough, anyone considered a threat to the system for any contrived reason by the powers that be could be directly targeted using their own appliances. Many consider this fourth-generation warfare, wherein the general public becomes the enemy of the state. It's been termed silent weapons for quiet wars, with the ultimate goal being depopulation more so than an Orwellian police state, where our freedoms, liberties, and rights are dissolved until non-existent, which they already are. The many executive orders signed by U.S. presidents underscoring this fact, or Supreme Court cases empowering corporations that have influenced government since the 1800s, not just lobbying power, are too lengthy to list here. But it's been shown that the communications industry now has more sway over our government than even the pharmaceutical industry. No one gets to vote on how many cell or Gwen towers are erected in their neighborhoods or children's schools, let alone that opting out of having smart meters on our houses will no longer be an option soon enough. This is the silent Holocaust in action, an undeclared war against the general public in all nations, particularly those of the United Nations, with contingencies in place for the continuity of government, a shadow government overseen by the UN and FEMA, possibly from the infamous Mount Weather in the USA, if it eventually creates a national emergency. Many believe this is what the FEMA camps and unconventional warfare training by the military such as REX-84 and UWEX-16 are for. Eventual civil unrest when it becomes obvious that we do live in a police state with a depopulation agenda. Some of us have been specifically targeted from amongst the public and attacked with microwave and ultrasonic weaponry, also known as psychotronics, for a variety of reasons, from whistleblowing to being labeled a dissident to money and revenge. Sometimes it's even just for experimenting on a target of opportunity by the military mafia complex, a term not often used, let alone understood by most. Citizens are harassed with V2K, also known as voice to skull or voice of God, and long-range microwave weapons until suicide would seem the only option. That seems to be the consensus among those who have claimed to be targeted. Targeting a person is often coupled with the phenomenon known as gang stalking, a term aptly derived from gangsters, which is basically what the military mafia complex is comprised of. They're gangsters of the elite who own our militaries and found organized crime was a useful tool for drug running, human trafficking, and any given nefarious enterprise. The military and mafia, including the CIA and other agencies, are very interchangeable. I could elaborate this point with some personal experience. I was personally targeted over a non-union family business, as were others around me, but I'll save that tangent for another time. Instead, I'll let Kay Griggs, the ex-wife of a former NATO assassin who had connections to some of the military's top brass, convey it in her own words.
They were Army and Navy together, joint. And George kept saying, George calls them the members of the firm. He calls them the members of the firm. I've heard the brotherhood. They're very close. And it's a small group, and it's very hierarchical.
Their god is this brotherhood.
The Brotherhood, and it's very German. It's very,
Does it have Masonic leanings?
oh, absolutely Masonic leanings. Not all Masons, but this Brotherhood, Opus Dei, if they're, or the mob. I mean, the one thing I've been able to determine about the current Marine Corps, the Marine Corps that my husband came in with, Gray, Reap, Sheehan, they're all mob.
Now, when you say mob, you're talking mafia type
New
mob?
Jersey Mafia, right. Right.
Okay, is the mob and this military bunch, they're one and the
The
same?
Marine Corps guys are the hitmen, and they are mercenaries. They'll work for anybody. You think the Marine Corps is under the Navy? No way. They can just as easily be under an Army colonel, and if the Army colonel meets a Marine Corps colonel, the Army colonel is superior. They'll switch hats just like that. My husband said it's just, no big a deal. I'll go work for the State Department. I don't really. The Marine Corps is just it's like a smoke and mirrors thing. And they're run out of New Orleans. 4th Marine, Oswald. I mean, they are not, on his level, he said, we've never been an enemy of the Soviet Union. They work with these communists. The man who started this whole intelligence operation, the OSS, he was recruiting known communists who were involved in the Spanish, subverting Spain. There's no more. They're not Americans. They're not Christians. They're German existentialists. Now, what are they doing running our nation? It's kind of, they have more affinity for the state of Israel right now than they do our nation. They don't care about American citizens. The judges now in the courts are military officers following chain of command orders. They're not independent judges. The problem, as I see it, is that I think they're trying to destroy America and the basic Protestant Christian culture. But this is interesting. It talks about sabotage, subterfuge. This is the standard Army book teaching men to lie, cheat, steal, be peeping toms on women. Now, if they don't allow women in there and they can peeping tom all the wives they want, they don't need movies, pornography. And they go on all the TADs they want.
TAD is a...
Just take off. Just tell their wife they're going. And they can lie, because it's all secret. We don't have to tell our wives anything.
And it's intelligence. It's work.
Oh, it's intelligence. Yeah, sure, it's intelligence. This is an intelligence and electronic warfare operations book distributed by the Army. And what it shows me is how arrogant they are about subversion and deception. In other words, this is just a regular old field manual, 1983 or whatever. And deception is so important.
Okay.
In the special operations is what my husband was head of, operations. The electronic warfare, an important part of electronic warfare is deception and knowing everything about the person, not just knowing about the target. Now, human beings are called targets. Women now are being targeted by the military, wives like me. So they'll have a team finding out everything about my grandparents, my family, who my friends are, to try and discredit me. And, of course, everybody who is flagged, who is a target, they'll jamming is a deliberate radiation or re-radiation of electromagnetic energy to prevent or downgrade the reception of information by a receiver. The multi-spot jamming is directed against more than one frequency. In other words, they jam I've had my caller ID downloaded. Sarah McClendon called my house and was told she couldn't reach me. It was a military base. MED is conducted. MED is manipulative electronic deception. Simulative electronic deception is SED. MED is conducted by altering the electromagnetic profile of friendly forces. It seeks to counter hostile electronic warfare and SIGINT activities by manipulating friendly electronic magnetic emissions. This is done by magnifying the technical characteristics and profiles which would provide an accurate picture of friendly intentions by deliberately transmitting false information. In other words, they are interested in deception as part of their line of attack.
As for the military mafia's part in the silent Holocaust, let alone the many security firms with ex-military personnel, conscripts from InfraGard, the FBI's COINTELPRO, counterintelligence program, citizens on patrol, surveillance role players, and even general street dregs. They are only doing the dirty work and fulfilling the vision of the elite, who use them in an ongoing Hegelian dialectic of divide and conquer infighting, an undeclared war of attrition. They get us to kill ourselves by creating phantom enemies and empowering auxiliaries, thugs really, with an us versus them mentality. It's easy to keep a chain of command intact with threats, conditioning, and even promises of a place in the brave new world order, and money. I should reference the Georgia Guidestones briefly, also known as the Ten Commandments of the Illuminati, just to reinforce the idea of the silent Holocaust and depopulation agenda. Keeping the world population under 500 million is a goal not easily reached without mass insurrection and anarchy, thus the need to slowly and subtly depopulate without arousing suspicion. Distracting us with numerous alternate conspiracies, threats of world war, or just entertaining the sheeple has most of us looking in the wrong direction while their thug employees erect microwave towers in every neighborhood in the dead of night. This plan, agenda, conspiracy, or whatever you like, began long before the so-called Illuminati, while our police state is modeled after ideals of some of history's so-called greatest minds. Plato, an adept of the occult who could accurately be called Neo-Pythagorean, wrote Republic, which details a utopian society, or dystopian depending on your outlook, ruled by philosopher kings of the mystery schools. Auxiliaries are defenders or thugs of those who deem themselves illuminated and fit to rule. Together they rule and enforce whatever laws might exist over the producer class, which is everyone else no matter the occupation. But with AI and robotics advancements, producers won't be that necessary, and most likely auxiliaries. To at least some extent, Francis Bacon's New Atlantis can be considered yet another blueprint for this form of society, with enlightened scientist sages being his vision of the pinnacle of mankind. Bacon is widely considered an unofficial founding father of America while also being a secret Rosicrucian. But in his version, the scientists were those who were in power, the philosopher kings. But more akin to Plato's version is Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Bavarian Illuminati. Weishaupt and his initiate colleagues, or coterie depending on your outlook, sought to undermine all authorities and religions of their time, particularly the Catholic Church, while calling for the abolition of property, marriage, inheritance, and all children, who would be illegitimate, to be wards of the illuminated state, Big Brother. I detailed some amount of the Illuminati in my World Order video and also noted that Weishaupt's vision, older than Plato, would also in time influence the creation of the Communist Manifesto. One group I failed to mention, detailed in Rabbi Marvin S. Antelman's To Eliminate the Opiate, is the Bundergerechten, a group of Germans, Jews mainly, who sought to reform Judaism, undermine it more accurately, particularly in old Russia. Religion is called the opiate of the people, and like Weishaupt, they sought its elimination in favor of so-called scientific enlightenment. And while groups like the Illuminati have typically been full of Kabbalists and mystics of whatever kind, that's why, in the opinion of people like K. Griggs, most of them seem like they're German existentialists or scientifically enlightened. The Jewish banksters who puppeted Wall Street supplied the Bolshevik atheists with the means to overtake Russia and create the Soviet Union. Wall Street also financed Hitler's regime, mainly so that Stalin's juggernaut wouldn't swoop down and overtake all of Europe. The fundamental difference between Hitler and Stalin is National Socialism versus International, which is communism. But as Soviet communism was only a blueprint for the kind ruled by philosopher kings, the elite globalists, Illuminati and Luciferians, gave Hitler the means to keep Stalin in check. Otherwise, the Hegelian balance created by the Illuminists would have been tipped too soon for their utopian New World Order to eventually flourish. They would also need a Holocaust, including far more than just the Jewish population. Revisiting the gang-stalking networks and electronic harassment, the Western police state has largely been modeled after not only the Nazi Gestapo, but the Soviet KGB and East German Stasi secret police, the modern prototype auxiliaries. It's estimated that at least 1 in 6 citizens of East Germany were informants on the payroll for the Stasi in some way. Neighbors and even family would turn on one another to stay in Big Brother's good graces and get money. The same has been increasing in Europe and the USA since World War II and how we came to have gang-stalking networks. I can personally say I've seen it in action with union lackeys, both white and blue collar, who are in turn connected with not only the military and/or mafia, but also the Freemasons behind the shadow powers that be. This is the society they want, a communist Orwellian police state eventually ruled by sorcerer kings, for lack of a better term, while most of the hierarchy just believes it's about money. Here's just a minor allusion to Stasi-esque snitching.
Hi, I'm Janet Napolitano, Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Security begins with hometown security. That's why I'm pleased that Walmart is helping to make our communities more safe and secure. If you see something suspicious in the parking lot or in the store, say something immediately. Report suspicious activity to your local police or sheriff. If you need help, ask a Walmart manager for assistance. Thank you for doing your part to help keep our hometowns safe.
I'm sure most are aware that the USA pays Israel billions in extortion dollars for no other reason than to create war, as a courtesy to the elite's vision, the Rothschilds mainly. The Rothschilds have long made money in other enterprises besides banking, including weapons manufacturing and trading, and drug wars, mainly beginning with the Opium Wars in China. And by this arrangement, including instigating war with false flags like 9/11, the USA and UN forces, including private military corporations, are made the standing army Israel uses to effect wars in the Middle East, so that they can remain the innocent even while entering into conflicts themselves. The USA is the fall guy fronting the UN while Russia plays its own part, and Communist China consumes everything financially on their behalf. And while China is owed billions of dollars by the USA and intends to collect through corporate piracy, it's unlikely that a conflict or World War III will develop that would threaten their return on investment. The same applies to Russia, basically. World war is largely smoke and mirrors, though still possible if other methods like 5G radiation fails or progresses too slowly. So while Russia and China each hope to be the first countries fully utilizing nationwide 5G technology, the same is hoped for by Middle Eastern nations as well as Europe and the USA. There is no need for a world war. We are being slow-cooked like frogs in a pot, and the real enemy is the populace in the way of elite globalists, whose own version of communism is not quite the same as the one portrayed in history and the media. They consider themselves the philosopher kings, the enlightened, Luciferians for lack of a better name, who only want to see the rest of us go away so that they can enjoy the splendors of the earth, which will eventually heal itself of pollution and chemtrails. The nuclear waste at the bottom of the oceans may take a while longer, however, but as they perfect AI and robotics, again, there will be even less of a need for a slave class of producers, let alone auxiliaries or guardians or thugs. That seems the most likely scenario to this author anyway, though I'm sure many will point out that they will still need a certain amount of us for blood sacrifices to their demon gods, the aliens many claim the government obtained their technology and power from. Demons to the rest of us. Aleister Crowley's Lom. Whatever you consider the elite to be, another race, hybrid, serpent seed reptilians, or just greedy elitists, a depopulation agenda is the goal. In any case, it is a war against humanity, to those of us who are aware anyway, and as inhuman an agenda as it is, The elite might as well be cold-blooded reptilians. Those who die in the name of their mystery school utopia certainly won't care one way or another. It should go without saying that the elite consider the producer class, let alone the state-funded poor, to be human cattle. That includes more than the phony Jews who call Gentiles Goyim, but also the black nobility and the so-called enlightened members of the upper ranks of secret societies such as the Freemasons, Rosicrucians, or others. We are just cattle being led to the slaughter. And so are many of the so-called elite, ironically. A movie was made about an autistic woman named Temple Grandin who became a genius of animal husbandry. One of her most famous inventions was a cattle chute that naturally herded and funneled the animals in a direction that seemed natural to them. The same is being done to us, and at the end of the chute is a slaughter by 5G and the Internet of Things. And they make us clamor for it. Believe it or don't. And while the noose is being tightened around our necks, there are still some measures you can stave off some of the effects with. There are plenty of videos with instructions for making Faraday cages for your smart meter if you're unable to opt out through the power company. And again, it's a good idea to unplug as often as possible while shutting off all electronics when you sleep. Don't eat their pre-packaged garbage. Exercise and get out of cityscapes as much as possible. Practice grounding and hug a few trees while they're still here, before the chemtrails kill them off. And there are plenty of people who swear by the difference it makes. Take vitamin supplements and exercise whatever proven body cleansing protocols exist. I'm no expert, so it's up to you to figure out what you're lacking and need to supplement with. Make their occult utopia take that much longer to come to fruition.
Live blood analysis and electrosmog. We can learn much by looking at our blood under a microscope. This short video shows a macrophage, which is like a vacuum cleaner, engulfing bacteria among red blood cells. I decided to find out what my blood looked like. I pricked my finger, placed a drop of blood on a slide, and looked at it under the microscope. This is what I saw. The cells are round, some are separate, and a few are sticking together. Overall, fairly healthy looking blood. This testing was done in a clean electromagnetic environment, and I did not eat or drink before or during testing. I then worked on a computer for 70 minutes and looked at my blood again. This time, the cells are sticking together like stacked coins. This is called rouleau formation. Later that day, I used a cordless phone for 10 minutes and looked at my blood again. And this is what I saw. Very unhealthy looking blood. There are virtually no single cells. Most of the cells are now in rouleau formation. A doctor told me this is what she sees with cancer patients. What I learned is that my blood goes into rouleau formation when I use a computer or a mobile phone. This type of clumping interferes with the release of oxygen and the removal of waste products like carbon dioxide.
The capillaries are so narrow that red cells must squeeze through in single file, showing the importance of their elasticity.
What are the consequences of rouleau formation? Poor circulation resulting in lower oxygen transport to cells and reduced waste removal. What are the symptoms someone may experience? Headaches and fatigue, difficulty concentrating, numbness, tingling, and cold extremities, and possibly heart and blood pressure problems, including risk of stroke. What is the significance of this? Live blood analysis may be a good diagnostic for electrohypersensitivity. For more information about electrohypersensitivity, visit www.electrosensitivesociety.com.